Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review of the anime Is It Wrong to Try to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon, Season 1 on Netflix. And I really love this anime. They did a really good job of introducing you to pretty much the basic concept of the world without doing complete info dump. They did it in a way it's like, of course, you can't really get through this without being like, okay, here's kind of the basic kind of gist. But it wasn't like, oh god, the log of info is coming. Whap! No, they're like, okay, here's this world. The gods kind of got a little bit bored and decided to seal away some of their godly power and live among the mortal people. And then just kind of throws us in there with our main character of Belle and what that kind of means. So we've got all these gods and goddesses walking around and everything, and it's really kind of cool to just kind of see all the different kind of mix-ups of different kind of deities all around. And granted, this first season is only 13 episodes, but I'm like, okay, I can't wait to see what more is going on and what other kind of pantheons they introduce. So our main character is Belle, and he has been looking for a familia to join because he wants to be an adventurer, and you need a god or goddess's blessing so that way you don't get completely and utterly fucked up in this tower dungeon thing. Now, granted, I still don't know exactly how it works, but the thing is, this world pretty much runs on video game logic to a degree, but like real world video game logic. Like, you level up, your skills increase as you do certain things, and you can turn in things that you get for loot and rewards and shit. I'm just like, damn it, that's actually a pretty fucking great setup. And the monsters respawn. It's like, what the fuck's going on here? This is pretty cool. So, those are the kind of basic gists. We get Belle. He's like, okay, I'm gonna go in the dungeon and do some stuff. And we see that his relationship with Hestia is very... I really enjoyed their relationship because Hestia really didn't have any people in her familia, and Belle's pretty much the first one, and she's very protective of him. She definitely has feelings for him and acts that way, but it doesn't really get... Granted, it didn't get annoying to me. Now, granted, she goes into the pretty much tsundere kind of thing of, like, telling him not to do stuff and, like, whacking him and stuff, but you know deep down she cares about him. Like, she really doesn't want him to get hurt. She pretty much loves his ass. And it's funny to see the different situations going in there. But he's going in, trying to get stronger, and at one point, a stronger monster comes up onto one of the lower level floors, and he's fucking terrified, and he gets saved by this sword princess chick, Eyes, and he's covered in blood and fucking freaking out, and he like runs out, and it's pretty much love at first sight with this chick, and he's telling it to his guild handler, and she's like, why don't you just kind of like chill out and everything? But this leads into kind of like how it starts putting his hero's journey kind of path. We see that Hestia like looks at his level and everything and finds out that he's got a kind of skill that if he's got these intense feelings for someone and like keeps going on, his level will increase vastly faster than what usual people do. And as we get through some of the episodes, we see that it takes years for certain people to get to certain levels, and Belle kind of does it in like a month and a half. Now, granted, there are extenuating circumstances because there's other gods in play. Well, specifically a goddess, at least at one point, because we don't know what other people are like going in for. Because people start getting an interest, mainly the gods and goddesses, in him. And this one goddess, Freya, starts really doing some crazy shit. It's not completely crazy, but it's kind of concept from like the Tales series. He's like pretty much like beefing himself up. He's doing his stuff. She throws a giant monster at him, and luckily Hestia has gotten to her buddy Hephaestus, and like, hey, can you make like a really good knife for him, because he's more of a kind of rogue kind of class kind of dude. And she's like, fine, but you got to do shit for me. And so she pretty much has to work part-time at Hephaestus's shop to pay that off. I'm like, okay, that's pretty good, but that's what she will do for her familia. It's like, okay, that's pretty sweet. But it's very convenient because he really needed that when that giant-ass monster came up, and he's able to use it effectively because it's coded to him. And that becomes important in a storyline when another character pops up, whereas it'll get stronger as he gets stronger, and it's pretty much only useful to him because he gets back up. He's like, all right, cool, that worked out pretty well, and he decides to get like a support person. And she's Lily, and she really hates adventures. We get her whole backstory, and I'm like, wow, that's actually pretty effective. They do a really good job of character development in this series because I haven't really fallen into a character that's like complete crap. And like it's just kind of window dressing. They at least do a nice job of going into them and be like, hey, okay, this person's a person. And it's like, all right, that's pretty cool. And granted, there is fan service going around, but it's not for the sake of fan service or like fan service is its only goal. There's no one character that is just there for like this is the fan service character. Granted, there's a lot of stuff with like boobs and stuff like that because that's pretty much what they like hit Hestia for. She's like really short and has big boobs, but of course we've then got Loki, who's really tall but as flat as a board, and they fight each other on that at this like one god meeting place, and it was just really well done. It's not like on the face like, oh, okay, here's boobs. They at least try and put some context behind it, so that way it's just like, oh, here's gratuitous boobs. It's like, okay. Like at one point, Belle has been training with eyes and trying to kind of get better, and of course Hestia is really pissed off about that and like flies at his face and pretty much gets into a position where she's accidentally kind of smothering him, and she's like, what are you doing? And smacks him away. It's like, okay, that just shows that she's really not thinking through what her feelings are and overreacting both times into a situation in the same situation. So we see that Belle has like a lot of shit to deal with because he even at one point tries to go out on a date with Hestia, and then he has to run around town because a lot of thirsty goddesses are chasing him around. It's like, okay, that's a problem. And the thing is, he's pretty much that kind of naive, kind of younger character who's like, he's into girls, but he doesn't know how to deal with it, and of course getting chased by like a ravenous kind of mob of like thirsty goddesses who were kind of like making fun of Hestia because evidently in the heavens she didn't have a boyfriend, and they were all like, give us the deets, and it's like, fuck that shit, we're gonna get the deets ourselves, and it's like, ah shit. So that was like a really enjoyable comedic moment. It's like, oh, okay, and then we get a nice kind of calm moment where they're just having a nice kind of like view as they got to a point where they're just looking out over the city, and they're like, they were going to go for dinner, but they spent so much time dodging all of these people. It's like, oh, crap. Well, he's pretty much getting his profile risen, so he needs a support person to help out. So he's going in, and we see them kind of going back and forth. Now, granted, Lily is pretty much trying to play him and pretty much does a trap to, well, not intentionally kill him, but she wouldn't have felt bad if he died. And we've seen that Adventures and the Familia she's in is complete and utter shit. But, of course, her Familia pretty much tries to kill her and take everything as well. And at one point, she had previously tried to take the knife, and as she attempted to sell it, it was dull. And she's like, what the fuck? Why is he able to do this? The most she would have been able to get for it was like 30 gold. And she's like, what the fuck? But, of course, one of the tavern people that Belle has become friends with sees this and is able to get the knife back for him, and she's like, listen, you wouldn't have dropped this knife. Your goddess gave this to you. Think about it a little bit. But Belle doesn't really care about that, and when Lily is pretty much fucked over, he goes and does his hero moment of helping her out and taking out all of the bugs and everything to save her, even though she had just pretty much tried to kill him. Well, not intentionally kill him, but if he had died, she wouldn't have cared. So she's saying all these things, but he's like, listen, I just came to save you. And that pretty much gets her trust with him. And the thing is, it's very understandable for her to be wary of people, but it also does a good job in the show of being like, yeah, you kind of have to trust people in certain points, especially when they show you that they can be trusted. Like Belle. Of course, Hestia's like, I'm on to you. And, of course, seeing that she's, like, trying to put the moves on Belle while Hestia is trying to put the moves on Belle was a kind of nice bookend to that one episode. But then we start moving into the next one, and we see that he needs to start partying up because he has gotten to a point. He does a thing where he has to fight a pretty much amped up Minotaur. Freya pretty much introduces this scenario where one of her familia goes in and essentially pretty much trains up a monster and gives it a weapon, and Belle frickin' has a badass fight scene with that thing to the point where he like blows it up and kills it, but he is so drained that he like falls asleep standing up, and he has like gotten his abilities so high and gotten to level 2, gets a whole title, little rookie and everything. It's like, okay, this is moving pretty cool. But because he's a higher level, he can go deeper into the dungeon, but yet he's by himself, so he needs to partner up. And that's where they bring in the character Welf, and I liked his introduction as well. It was kind of strange because I'm like, okay, there's got to be something in here that's going to kind of like mess with me. And even though this follows a lot of the typical kind of anime tropes, it's executed so well, and the characters are interesting and not annoying or like just kind of dead, that you're like, oh, okay, this Welf dude. He's a dude who's with the Hephaestus family, and he does armor and stuff. Actually, he can do magic swords as well, but he's running into bad luck with that because people become to rely on those magic swords too much, and then those magic swords sometimes fail those people, and he doesn't want that to happen. And we see him kind of building up his relationship, going into the dungeon with Belle, learning about him, and being like, hey, you're pretty cool. Because Belle had actually bought some of his armor and was looking specifically for his armor, and he's like talking to a dude, the shop owner, and he's like, why do you keep putting my shit in like the weirdest places? And Belle's like, oh, okay, cool. And of course, he's trying to use Belle's reputation to kind of amp up his stuff. But he like makes a dagger out of the Minotaur horn that Belle was able to get from the Minotaur he defeated, and we just see them kind of bonding over and getting their kind of core dynamic down as they're going through. Now, granted, that doesn't last too long because they, on pretty much their first trip down there in the middle levels, there's another family that has someone injured and accidentally, well, not accidentally, they've got monsters on their tail and they pretty much book it past them as they're fighting monsters, and this just devolves into a crazy ass scenario where they have to keep going deeper in order to get out because they just keep getting stymied by more and more monsters. It's like, holy shit. And we see Belle's able to get past the floor boss, and I'm like, yeah, floor bosses, raid kind of stuff, that's kind of interesting, except the thing is, if you fuck up, you're dead. So he's able to get past there and get to the safe floor, and he runs, of course, into Eyes and the Loki Familia and everything going on down there. But it's a safe zone, so you don't have to really worry about monster attacks. Usually. But we see that since they've been gone for so long, Hestia is freaking the hell out. And, of course, the other god who's in charge of the party that had pretty much fucked him over is like, this ain't cool. We'll help you out. And she's like, yeah, you're gonna do that. I won't hate you, but I'll never forgive you for this shit. This doesn't go right. And we see that one of the other gods, Hermes, is wanting to go as well because he had evidently made a promise to someone. And we see them go down. They're able to link up and everything. And we start kind of getting a little bit more information on that. Whereas Hermes, at the end of the season, we learned that Belle's grandfather is Zeus. And we're like, holy shit. And he's pretty much trying to gauge how Belle will be as a hero. And that's important because we see Belle going through the various interactions with everybody and being okay. He doesn't really... He understands why those people did it and pretty much forgives them for what happened because they didn't intentionally want to hurt them and everything. And they're pretty much just milling around. He's having some good repertoire with Eyes. Their relationship I like in the beginning because he's really infatuated with her. We got one point where Eyes wanted to meet him up in the regular town and was talking to his handler in the guild, and he freaks out, accidentally runs into a buff dude, and then accidentally runs into her ass because she pretty much like flipped up, and she's like, why do you keep kind of running from me? And she doesn't really ask him outright that yet, but I think she's kind of starting to get the idea that like he likes her, and he's just like freaked out to even try and interact with her. But it's kind of cool because it went from the training to being like, okay, they got mutual respect for each other and they're interested in each other. Well, we know that Bell is definitely interested in her because his goal is to stand at her side and be strong enough to be on par with her so that way he doesn't like make her look bad or anything. And because that's his main thing. He also got another skill of the Argonaut that like helps him do a hero shot whenever the need arises. So it's like, okay, those are some pretty big skills, and that's pretty important to his growth because he wants to be a hero and to help people. And it's like, okay, that's pretty cool. Gives me a lot of vibes of like Dragon Ball, My Hero Academia, and everything. I'm like, okay, I really like this character. I really like seeing him go through all these trials because he does get his ass kicked with a lot of stuff. Even in this kind of place, we see these guys who are jealous of him. One's got a helmet of Hades that makes him invisible, and he starts beating Bell. But the thing is, Bell starts getting wise to him and is able to start figuring out what to do, and eventually kicks the helmet pretty much to pieces off of his head to kind of stop what's going on. And I'm just really interested to see how all these different kind of relationships kind of advance. I'm like, ooh, this is cool. This is my core hook of what's going on. They've got a lot of good animation, they got a really good story, and they got lots of good character development. So I'm like, yes. So, after those guys are pretty much doing their thing, and Hestia is pretty much ready to unleash her godly wrath, we see that the floor boss that they had pretty much outrun crashes into the safe floor, and this unleashes all this crazy monster things. And we see all these different kind of adventures doing all their different kind of cool stuff with like magic and fighting styles, and it's just like, okay, but they're not really having that much luck in taking out the Goliath. We'd seen Bell use his hero shot previously to one-shot a dragon, and he tries to do the same thing here, but it doesn't work. He even gets pretty much smacked like a motherfucker by the thing, but he was shielded by one of the party members that had like pretty much put him in the situation. But he's able to get back up, and he pretty much gets one of these crazy-ass weapons. Welf is able to use one of his magic swords that Hephaestus had given the group that was going into the dungeon to rescue him to kind of weaken the monster, and Bell's able to superpower his hero shot to pretty much chop the damn thing in half and stop its regeneration long enough for him to stab it in the core and end it. It's like, shit, that was pretty good. And the thing is, we see that all these people are pretty much hurt and everything. Everybody pretty much makes it out okay, but it's like, I understand that there's like stakes that you need to have, and I was like wondering who was going to die. I'm like, okay, we'll have to see kind of like what death things go on further, because there's one character, Rio, her familia was attacked by another familia and pretty much wiped out. So there's some Game of Thrones shit going on too. So that shit could even pop up. I'm thinking that Freya was kind of behind the floor boss maybe, but maybe another god or goddess was. So it's kind of cool to still have those kind of things in the background of like, we'll have to see how the stakes and how the kind of machinations kind of start ramping up as this series progresses. And I'm glad that they kind of kept that in with the gods and goddesses when you have it in this kind of world, because they did that shit all the time in every kind of mythology, Greek, Roman, Norse, all of it. If there's not gods and goddesses doing horrible, weird-ass shit to each other, or to mortals, Game of Thrones style, you're kind of not doing it justice, because they usually do that all the time. So it's interesting to see that, and I'm intrigued to see how that affects like other seasons going forward. So it ends off with them getting out of the dungeon and pretty much celebrating and all that. It's like, okay, cool. I really enjoyed that. I didn't really think that there were any kind of really dead spaces with it. Even though there's 13 episodes, we get Bell's introduction. We get him pretty much set up on his hero's journey. We get the introduction of Lily, Welf, getting them kind of combined together, and then we get their first kind of major hurdle at the end, which sets up a nice kind of status quo going forward, where this story arc is ended, but we're already set up for what can come next. So I'm just like, I really enjoyed this. I like learning about the characters, learning about the world, and just everything going on. The animation just kind of drew me in. Now, granted, the bigger kind of monsters, CGI wise, are your typical kind of thing. It's not completely horrendous and it's not completely like balls amazing, but it's serviceable, and I didn't have any objections. I'm like, yeah, that's still pretty cool. I like it. And trust me, when you're doing action like this in that dungeon, action needs to be done well. And I really like seeing Belle and all the different kind of fighting styles that all the characters kind of employ. Because we see Belle doing his kind of rogue thing, we see Welf doing his kind of swordsman thing, Lily pretty much like the support, and then we see, of course, the casters and the different shield people and all these different kind of things going on. I'm like, you pretty much hit all my buttons with this anime. I'm like, I really am interested in seeing the next couple seasons and everything, and I would really hope that Netflix is able to get it at some point, or I'm going to try and find it on other places. Maybe even try and look up like how much the Blu-ray or anything is. I really liked it and really enjoyed it. I'm like, holy shit! It's now granted, it's not been a complete while because there's been some good ones that Toonami has been putting on, but it's been a little bit since I've just been like immediately grabbed by a series, and this one did that very well for me with everything that it was able to check off. So, I wouldn't recommend this for younger kids because of course, the sexual content and the violence and everything, but like teenagers and up, and if you're into action, if you're into characters, and you're into a cool kind of story and world, and hopefully they expand the lore, I'd recommend this anytime, really. Definitely. So, those are my opinions on the anime. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also, like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.